you ever wish you could get more time and increase your sewing productivity? Me too. Well, today's episode is going to help you in surprising ways find those opportunities. Hello everybody, it's another episode of 5 things and the ironing board is out. So if you love to sew like I do, then I'm sure you get those times when you crave for more time to sew. It's either like me, where you live and breathe sewing, and even when you're not sewing, you're thinking about sewing. Or you've got a very busy family life like I have, and I'm sure other people have, or work life, or just life admin, or just stuff going on where actually you just are struggling to fit in enough time to sew. Well, guess what? I've got 5 tips for you today that might help you to squeeze a little extra 5 minutes here and there to get a bit more of your favourite hobby in. And of course, we all know that sewing is good for our mental health, our well-being, and of course, keeping us in a good place so that when we're around other people, we're not just thinking about sewing. The ironing board is out. There is a big stack of fabric and it's time to have one of our ironing board chats. So for tip number 1, I don't think you're going to expect this or some of the other tips. My first tip is using variegated thread. Now you might think, how on earth does that save time? But I'm talking specifically about variegated thread in your overlocker. I have watched fellow sewists while I have been on sewing socials, sewing retreats, using a significant amount of their precious sewing time, changing their overlocker threads, all 4 of them, to match their fabric. Now, let's be clear. Who sees the inside of your make? Well, unless you're a very lucky person, it's just yourself. I am the only person who ever sees the inside of my makes mostly, unless I put them in the wash inside out. And so whilst we don't want something that really glares through the fabric, if there was like a little bit of like pulling and you could see it, what we do want is something that brings joy and grabs us a bit of time. So I have 2 permanent variegated threads set up in my overlocker. One in the upper looper and one in the loopers, it might be the upper looper I think, and one of the needle threads. That way you've got a blend so that when you put the other coloured threads in, it mixes well. What it means is that when I want to sew with something like this red fabric and I don't want to spend all my time changing my overlocker thread fully to red, I keep the 2 variegated in and just add in 2 red. It means you get some blend while also absolutely joyful. On most occasions I have 2 whites with the 2 variegated or 2 black with the variegated, because even a gorgeous fabric like this, it's white on the inside, so a mixture of variegated and white blends it perfectly so that you are not spending ages and ages changing all of your overlocker threads. Because if, like me, you have one of those overlockers where one of the lower looper threads goes all the way through and has to come back round, and the only way to do it is with tweezers, I want to reduce how many times I have to change that thread. So that one, unsurprisingly, is one of my variegated threads. So let's get on to tip number 2. I think this is another one that you're probably not going to be able to guess, and that is gusto. What do you mean, gusto? Well, if you've seen the adverts on TV, gusto is a form of meal boxes that is similar to HelloFresh and other ones like that. And I find that by having a meal box arrive on a Sunday with all the fresh ingredients in and my recipe cards, I have my 5 meals for the week planned. I've not got to spend time meal planning them because 3 weeks prior to that, I will have sat while I'm waiting for like a program to load on my work laptop or something, and I'll have chosen those 5 meals. That means that when I get to the week that they arrive, in my cupboard I have exactly what I need, and all I have to do on the day is pick which of the 5 ones I feel like cooking. I like to vary them. We like to pick it during the day or in the morning, so I even know what I'm cooking at night. and I will pick at least 2 that are either 10-minute meals or prepped in 5, which means 5 minutes of prep in the oven, and then I have 30 minutes that I have gained back of time. Now, you're still possibly wondering, well, how does that help you gain time with sewing? So, first of all, I have used Gusto for many, many years now. This is not sponsored by Gusto. I will put my link below. What I would say is, having tried all the meal box companies, they are my preferred one for portion size, quality of ingredients, and also customer service. And the way that they help me speed up my sewing is that I do not spend any time at the weekend having to go and shop for my food. We get a few little bits, but we can do that in our local shop, or we do it every other week. And so I have gained back, I would estimate, about 40 minutes to an hour in shopping for food, and probably 30 minutes in planning the meals and thinking it through each day / at the weekend. That means that all that time gained back can be used for sewing. And I tell you what, having used them now for about 7 years, I can confidently say I have never not had a meal that wasn't delicious. That's a lot of negatives in there. All their meals are delicious. Some are outstandingly good, others are sort of everyday delicious, but I've never been disappointed. So I'm pretty sure you wasn't expecting that one, but really they did change my life. So number 3 on my list of things that gain you time back for sewing is cutting in batches. Now, I know some of you lovely viewers out there are solo project people. That's cool. You don't need to work on more than one of them at once, but batch cutting for me has hugely increased my productivity time and time to be able to sew. And let's talk about why. I work full time. I have a house to run, I have a family, I have other things I do, such as a podcast and all sorts of things. So for me, when I want to sew, I want to be able to sit down and sew. When I'm working from home, that can happen in my lunch break, before work, after work, before I do dinner, or like I've just said, 30 minutes while dinner is cooking. Well, in that 30 minutes, I have not got time to get everything out, to cut everything out, to really think a whole project through. So what I do is, when I've got a longer period of time, I will plan and cut things out so that then these little pockets of time mean I can do sewing without having to get them out. The other reason that's really useful for me is I don't have a specific sewing room, and I definitely don't have a cutting table, which means that I can't cut part of a project out and leave it out. Now, if you are a lucky person that has those things, then this one might not be as essential for you, but I tell you what, going through your fabric stash, going through your patterns, having a big session, having a big plan, still gains you time when you've got those little 30 minutes, because you can whip up to your sewing machine, grab a project. Even if you're working on one project the whole time, you can gain time back with those 30 minutes to actually work on it, rather than having to sort everything out, cut things out, get all the bits out. Because I don't have a cutting table, I also then will stick on a movie when I get my cutting board out on the floor, because I am then sort of multitasking, and it also allows me to spend time with my family whilst doing my hobby. Most of my hobby is not when I'm with my family. I'm either upstairs away from them at my sewing machine, or at a social or something like that. It's not a very family orientated hobby. However, the batch cutting part does mean I can be part of what's going on, whether that's offering moral support for GCSE revision or watching a movie with other people. I can be around my family whilst batch cutting, or looking at patterns, or cutting out the bits of the paper patterns. that is a little bit rustly. I do get sent down the other end of the living room for that bit. But I highly recommend that if you're looking for ways to grab a bit of time and also not feel guilty that you're away from your family, then batch cutting, batch planning, that sort of thing is a really great way to gain a bit of time. Right, should we take a pause for a minute so we can talk about the fabrics? This one is a very lightly striped jersey fabric, and this is going to become some kind of fabulous summer top. This red viscose is destined to be some kind of vista top with a fabulous sleeve. Now, honestly, these two strawberry double gauzes I bought in the sale. They were very popular last summer, and I waited till they were in the sale and grabbed them. I don't know what they're going to be. Obviously, they're going to be something summer and fabulous. Give me your ideas, because I don't know at this point what I'm going to make with those. Right, let me grab my next fabric. So while I just take a minute to sort this fabric out, I would love you to leave your comments below on how you carve out extra bits of time with your sewing, because like we always say, let's get chatting in the comments. People will read your suggestions. I'd love to see them too, because although I've got my 5, I love to learn from you all. So do give me a suggestion. How do you carve a bit of bonus time to increase your sewing productivity? Right, let's get on to number 4. Now, number 4 is what I call the 5-minute rule. Often in life, we can be like, oh, that feels like a huge task, oh, and we put it off. I have applied what I call the 5-minute rule, which is basically stick on a song or whatever works for you, timer, and just do something for 5 minutes. Now, if that's that there's loads of housework swamping you and stopping you from wanting to sew, do a power housework for 5 minutes, and you will suddenly find that you will surprise yourself what you can squeeze into those 5 minutes. And then you'll be like, okay, now I can do a bit of sewing, or actually I'll get that finished and then it's not looming over me. But it also works with sewing. We can sometimes get ourselves into this mindset that we think we need a big chunk of time to be able to do something, when actually you might surprise yourself that if you sit down at the sewing machine and set yourself a 5 or 10 minute timer and go, oh wow, actually, I can't believe quite how much I achieved in that time. Never underestimate the 5 minutes that you gain here and there. So instead of scrolling on your phone or sort of fuffing about, see if you can sew both those sleeves in 5 minutes, or see if you can just grab your pins while you're waiting for everyone else to get their shoes on to leave the house. Just pin the arms into the bodice, ready for next time when you've got 5 minutes, and you can stitch them in. I find this that when I get up in the morning before I start work at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I start quite early, and sometimes I get up at like 7:30, I'm like, oh, just fuff about to start work. But actually, if I get my bottom in gear, I can probably squeeze in 15 minutes of sewing before I need to start. And I amaze myself sometimes about how productive I can be in 15 minutes rather than just sitting at my desk before my work starts scrolling on my phone. So it applies the 5 minutes rule to many things in life. I sometimes expand it to 20 minutes. We are known in our house for having a 20-minute power tidy where everyone helps. The tunes go on, we set a timer, and when the 20 minutes stops, we stop. And it makes things feel less onerous and less sort of big and overwhelming. And I highly recommend, even if you've only got 5 minutes, load up your bobbins. You will be amazed if you grab these little 5 minutes everywhere that you can get quite a lot of prep, pinning, snipping done in that time. So before I do the last one, just a little reminder that below the screen and in the details is a join button, and that is about my membership. If you're looking for more chat, extra videos, extra resources, then have a click, have a look, see what you think. You can cancel at any time. I'm always open to hearing what people want from membership. do ask me, do make suggestions, but it is a great way of getting extras from me. And also, if you want to support, because I do appreciate that people really sometimes want to give me support, it is a great way to help me. But as I say, to get extras, including things like if you're in the higher tiers, you get virtual chats together and we have a great time. And as I say, I'm always open to hearing what else people would like to see in the membership. I think it's time we did number 5. So number 5 is research. And you might think, how does researching save time? Because researching takes time. But bear with me a minute while I explain. So I like, before I begin a sew, when possible, to watch advice videos, to watch a sew along, just to get a sense, or to read through the instructions. And if you grab time when you normally wouldn't be sewing, such as when I'm in the bath, I rest whatever device of choice you have on my toilet, because it fits perfectly with the angle of my bath. You might need to think of something different. And I watch sew-alongs. And that means that while I'm having a relax, because I do find it relaxing, I can find all the hints and tips about a pattern before I set out on it. I will do this sometimes in the kitchen when I'm prepping dinner. I'll have it on my headphones in. I'll be listening to people talking about a pattern. When I'm in the car, we're stuck in traffic, I might be reading on my phone the PDF manual or a blog post. And so there are ways to be doing your hobby without sitting at your machine. The work I do, we have a very slow system that you often have to wait for it to load. And I can have next to my computer a printed out manual, and when I'm watching the little wheel go around as it loaded, I can just read a couple of pages about the fit. And so I would say, again, look for those pockets of time where maybe you can't be by your machine. You might be like I'm doing, giving moral support for revision where you need to be in the same room as someone else, but actually I can be reading a manual because I can put it down at any point and give moral support and then pick it up again. So they are my 5 tips about how to squeeze more sewing time, increase your sewing productivity. I really hope you enjoyed them. Please leave a comment below so that you can share other ones with each other. Catch you again soon. Bye.